Hello there, hope you're doing well. This is going to be a lesson on right hand technique. I'm going to talk about strumming, picking, hybrid picking, finger picking, and palm muting, and hopefully it will be helpful and informative for people who are beginners, intermediate players, and advanced players as well. So let's get into it. I'll start with strumming. My approach to strumming, the most important thing to talk about in regards to strumming is the downbeat. And we use the downbeats on the quarter notes, meaning I'll beat 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's obviously really basic, but we gotta start somewhere. So you wanna be comfortable with that, just playing simple quarter notes. And then the next thing to talk about is offbeats. So offbeats happen in between each of those downbeats. So if we have a count of 4 like that, 1, 2, 3, 4. Every one of those beats has a counter beat in between. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. And those off beats are represented by upstrokes. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. And once we're doing this is the foundation of all rhythm on the guitar. This up and down motion representing the downbeats and the offbeats. And so we want to be comfortable with this. And once this is happening, I call this the pendulum. Now our hand is moving almost like a pendulum on a clock, and it's just constant and steady. And most of the time when we're strumming, that is what our arm or what our hand should be doing. It shouldn't be forcing a downstroke or forcing an upstroke or it shouldn't be like this erratic thing. It should be very smooth and very loose and fluid, and that's what we want to develop, whether we're doing slow or faster. We might be moving in a tighter motion, and that would be the next thing to talk about, is where that movement happens. So I see a lot of times people gripping the pick really tight and moving from the elbow and forcing their strumming motion like that. So that's, there's going to be a little bit of movement at the elbow. There is some motion there, but we want to have this turning motion in the wrist is really, really important. That is really the crux of the movement. I don't know if that's the right word, but that's where the movement needs to happen. Loose wrist, very, very loose. Holding the pick very loose as well. Now, a lot of people talk about they drop the pick, or they have a hard time, the pick is turning and stuff on them and spinning around. So this is an important thing to talk about as well, is holding the pick. We want to hold the pick on the edge of the index finger, not on the pad of the index finger like that. It doesn't start like that and then we put the thumb on and then we play. Mind you, I'm sure there are some people who do play like that, but I think the much better way to hold the pick is, we're going to be able to balance the pick on the side of the finger, the index finger like that. We close the thumb on the top of the pick, we tuck the fingers in, maybe you extend these fingers out, wherever's comfortable, and that's it. And so that the middle finger can't grab the pick. The middle finger should not really be able to make contact with the pick in any easy way. So just the thumb and the edge of the index finger, and that's it. And if the pick is still turning and moving around on you, you might want to experiment with different pick grips or thicknesses. I also recommend to use a medium to heavy pick. Sometimes beginners like to use a thin pick, but that's fine, maybe in the beginning if you are having a hard time holding on to a thicker pick. But try to, as you progress, as soon as you can, move up to a medium or a thicker pick. Medium being like, I don't know, maybe 0.5 millimeter or up to 0.60 or 0.70% of a millimeter. I use 0.88. These green Dunlop picks, and that's perfect for me, but in the past I've used thicker picks than that as well, so it all depends, but definitely no thinner, I'd say, than like 0.5, 0.5 millimeter. And yeah, so that's what we can talk about with the pick, I guess, so, and I think that will get better. If you're dropping the pick, it's often because you're probably holding it too tightly, and then and then there's too much resistance against the string and then it falls out, or you're just getting used to holding it lightly and then it falls out of your hands. So, or it's turning around on you. I have to adjust the pick as well. Sometimes it turns on me and I just, make quick adjustments. That just kind of gets better as you play more. Mileage, I always say. The more mileage you put in, the more you're playing, the more those types of errors and mistakes or clumsiness things, they start to fix themselves. So that's how we're gonna hold on to the pick. The last thing of where the movement is, so I talked about the elbow, talked about the wrist moving, we're holding the pick correctly. And now the next thing to talk about is that I slightly kind of move my thumb and my index finger. There's definitely some motion there. And I call it like a fishtailing thing. So even when I'm strumming, I fishtail the pick like a fish swimming through the water. And when I'm doing a downstroke, to set up a downstroke, the pick kind of points up towards me, this direction a little bit more. And then as I extend through the downstroke, now it's going to point more towards the ground. Just slightly it's really more on an inward angle and then an upward angle this way. So the pick actually turns like that when we strum. And there's a bit of resistance with the thumb. The thumb will push a little bit harder against the top of the pick. If I want to accent a downstroke, I might be a little firmer with the pick. And then if I'm going to accent an upstroke, I'm going to be a little firmer with the index finger pushing against the thumb. Talk about the accents in a second there, but that's how I think there needs to be that movement from the elbow, a little bit of movement, a lot of movement in the wrist, and a little bit of movement in the thumb and the index finger as well. So yeah, when it comes to accents, we can put accents anywhere in the beat. So if what we've got so far is our downbeat and our offbeats, so we're playing with eighth notes, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So I think the first accents to try are accenting beat 1, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 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 then we're going to try to accent 1 and 3, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and then we can accent all the downbeats, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and then you can try after that just accenting. You could accent 2 and 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So all of these different ways, you could mix it up, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, whatever you want. So those are the first ones to start with. Work on accenting your downbeats first within an eighth note pattern like that. And then you can try accenting the offbeats, which are a little bit harder because you're going to have to really learn to feel those offbeats smoothly. So the offbeats, to accent those, we could start with, maybe the 2 and, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 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 then what? Maybe the 2 and the 4 and, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and you want to get comfortable with that until you're mixing them up. You can do them on every 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. So that's where you get more of like a reggae pattern where you're really getting those offbeats. And then eventually, once you're comfortable accenting downbeats and accenting offbeats individually like that, then you want to try to mix them. So maybe we accent the beat 1 and 2 and, so that we have a downstroke that's going to be accented and an upstroke that's going to be accented within a bar. 1 and 2 and 3. So sorry, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 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 if you're able to do that kind of thing, mixing them, then you can literally just write out the beat structure, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and write it out on a piece of paper, circle which beats you want to accent and challenge yourself to play those strokes harder. You don't have to write them out like that, but if you need that organization in your mind or to see it written out in front of you, then that's totally fine to do. I do that all the time with my students. And also to learn strumming patterns, you can write the arrows, downstroke, upstroke, with the beat structure underneath it. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and all the way across in a 1-bar pattern. And then you can circle random strokes and try to achieve that strumming pattern essentially. It's really, really interesting and fun way to practice. And even still, if I do that these days, I can come up with strumming patterns that I wouldn't come up with just by playing and noodling around on the guitar. So really effective way to come up with new patterns. What else can I say about that? Yeah, that's probably a good foundation of your strumming patterns that way. And then we can also talk about 16th notes. So 16th notes would be like a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a, where there's 4 beats per downbeat. 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a. It's not going to feel any different than what you were doing with the 8th notes. It's not going to feel any different in the mechanics of what you're doing with your arm, but in your mind and your body, with the feel of it, it should be a little slower feeling, really. Like the undercurrent of the rhythm should be more laid back and slow, but you're actually just, you're playing all these, twice as many subdivisions as doing when you were doing the 8th notes. So that's why it's like that 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a, and then you want to be comfortable with that. So if we were switching 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a. If you could work on that, switching between 16th notes and 8th notes, that would be good practice. You can also work on triplets. Triplets would be 3 beats per downbeat. So it'd be like 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a. Now that's going to be a little different when you start playing triplets like that. Then you're going to have a downbeat 1 and then your next downbeat is going to be 2 with an upstroke. So that's where triplets kind of change, where the downbeat is now going to be with an upstroke every other time if you're playing triplets right across a bar. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a. So we go opposite on those strokes. So we want to be able to mix those as well, going from 16th notes to triplets, back to 16th to 8th notes, practicing all of that. And you can set a metronome as well to help you with this. And just have the metronome click along in the background, learn to play with it just with quarter notes if you're not used to playing with the metronome, and then slowly adding more of those different subdivisions, 8th notes, 16th notes, and triplets. And you can also say all those rhythms out loud. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a. That's also good practice, just saying it out loud. If you find that you're struggling with the rhythm with your hands or with your right hand, just say it out loud, literally, and you'll start to drive that rhythmic feel into your body and into your mind. So that's really good. And the last thing I can talk about with strumming maybe is flourishes. So flourishes are things like if I'm doing a that's probably the most common flourish that I do, and the mechanics of it is down, down, up, down. That's really what's happening there, and I'm not really sure whether maybe it's 32nd notes or 16th notes, depending on where you're thinking about the rhythm. I'm not sure how that's actually all divided, but so we have 2 downs in a row. Down, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up, that. And if we just loop that flourish as close together as possible, then you kind of get this gallop. So, and then you can space them out, or you can have them as close together as you want. And so I think when you mix all of that stuff together, you understand downbeats, offbeats, quarter notes, 8th notes, triplets, and 16th notes. you know how to accent the strum, accent the beats, as well as adding fun little rhythmic flourishes as well. That's going to really make your strumming really exciting and really interesting. So practice all of that stuff. Make sure you're loose with the wrist, holding onto the pick, maybe at like a 2 or a 3 out of 10. 10 being like gripping it as tight as you can, and 0 being like it's like you're not even touching the pick. So you want to be holding it like 2 or 3, basically, when you're playing. And then when you accent, maybe you grip it a little tighter, like a 4 or a 5, to hold the pick a little firmer. Yeah, and that's maybe a good overview of the strumming. And then next we can get into picking. So when it comes to just single string picking, the first thing we need to talk about is that there's 2 different types of strokes. There's a free stroke and a rest stroke. So a free stroke is where we just pluck into the air. The pick just doesn't, it just plucks the string and your pick doesn't land on anything, it goes in the air. So to make more sense of that, the opposite, or the other type of stroke, the rest stroke, is where you push the string into push the pick into the next string. So my pick is actually landing. If I'm plucking the E string, it rests on the A string. That changes the tone of the string big time. So that changes the tone of the sound. You get this heavier sound. So I typically only really do this with downstrokes, that type of rest stroke. Everything else is usually free strokes. I don't often play upstrokes like with a rest stroke like that. So it's usually just the downstrokes. But so most of what you're playing is going to be free stroke, but the rest stroke can be really, really effective if you want to be punchy on your notes and make your notes louder. It's good to practice that. So I might even go through a whole scale with rest strokes like that, all down. Whereas you can also do free stroke. All down. Very different sound. So, and then we also need to talk about alternate picking. So just like with strumming, we alternate pick to create more subdivisions within the rhythm. So the downbeat is represented by a downstroke. The offbeat is represented by an upstroke. And so we have this 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. That's a good thing to practice just on its own. You could switch between the strings, 4 strokes per string, or two strokes per string, 1 and 2 and 2. So you can find all these different ways to practice those things without even doing anything with the left hand. Maybe your fingers are sore, your fingers are feeling tender from practicing a lot, and maybe then you would just want to close your hand on the strings and just work on some right hand exercises like that. That's a great time to do this kind of thing. You don't actually need to be playing with your left hand to work to get an effective, efficient practice in with the right hand. So you want to work on your alternate picking, and that will lead you into like tremolo picking as well. Tremolo picking is like this kind of thing. All I can really say about tremolo picking is that for me, if I'm doing that, what I do is I turn the pick on its side. So this, I don't know if I can kind of demonstrate this very well. If I'm hitting the string, this is like flat. What I'll do when I'm tremolo picking is just kind of tilt the pick forward like this, and then I knife the string, almost slicing the string this way. So the thin edge of the string is what is actually making contact, not the flat edge of the pick. So, and that allows the pick to slide off the string a little bit better. You can go faster. And then for me, when I do this is a bit more, I hold the pick a little tighter, slightly, just maybe at a 4 or a 5. And then move a little bit, stiffen a little bit in the wrist. And work on the speed with that. But obviously, you can be really loose with the wrist when you do this. It's just not how I do it. Not as good at that. But if you're feeling any tension and any pain in any way, then that's where you want to go. If you're probably too stiff and too tight and you need to release that tension, and play with a looser grip and looser wrist. So you can work on your tremolo picking. You can also talk about arpeggios. So arpeggios are just where, you know, maybe you take a chord, like a C chord, and you play, oops. So I'm just playing, you know, the A string, D, G, B with downstrokes. Then I turn around at the E string. And then I'm going to turn around again on the A string. So it's down, 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 up, 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 down, 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 up, 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 up. So this is something that you want to make an individual stroke for each string. You don't want to just fall through the strings like that with rest strokes. Because it's, you know, maybe at the end of the song, do something like that, but if you're going to keep in motion, you need to turn around and go up again, then you're going to want to make these individual motions for each stroke. So it's a very basic exercise, and you can just change chords if you want. You can go to A minor to make it interesting, back to C, that's really important with your picking, just being comfortable with those types of arpeggios. You can use any chord you want. You can do it with you know, 2 strings or 3 strings or all 6 strings, however you want to structure that arpeggio. It's all going to be the same kind of mechanics, and really important technique to master with your single string picking. And then when in regards to breaking up chords like that, the next thing we can talk about is string skipping. So that's where it's as basic as it sounds. You're just going to take the pick and skip the strings. So if we did that same arpeggio, it would be like A string down, G string down, high E string up, down, down, up. And if you wanted to do it like a true arpeggio like that, you just come back up on the G string as well. Down, down, up, up, down, down, up, up, down, up, up. You're gonna have to make a wider jump. You're gonna have to jump over that next string each time. To practice. And then you could do the G chord. You're doing the E string, D string, B string. And back to the D in the middle. You switch between them. Doesn't matter what chord you use. I'm not really, you know, showing you which chord I'm playing here, whatever. It doesn't really matter. So you could go from, I call this like a root 5 chord, where the root note is on the A string and the 5th string, or root 6, where the root note is on the low E string or the 6th string. So that kind of at least changes where the starting point of each chord is going to be to make it more challenging. You can also string skip this way with the alternating pick pattern, where maybe you take a C chord and you play the A string down, G string up, D string down, B string up, G string down, E string up. Like that. It's a good exercise, and you can come back down. Up so. Those are good tricky patterns to challenge your right hand with your string skipping like that. So you can get as creative as you want with that. You can do big wide jumps with your string skipping. Going A string to E string, or E string to E string. Just getting used to that motion. Are you going to do, you know, we need to be able to move in tight, small ways like that, but also in big, wide ways this way too. So you could go E, E, A, B, D, G, just even with the open strings like that. And then back out the way you came. E, E, A, B, D, G, A, B, E, E. Another great exercise you don't need your left hand for. You can just mute the strings. And just work on your speed and see if you can do that more and more quickly and efficiently. Another aspect of picking we can talk about is pinch harmonics. So what this is when we actually pinch, we put the thumb, normally when we play, the thumb is maybe further back on the butt end of the pick, but we can also play with the thumb creeping over the top of the pick, and so that the flesh of your thumb is actually making contact, is actually coming over the tip of the pick like that. And then when you pick the string with that type of technique, the plastic, or whatever the pick's made out of, plastic touches the string, first, and then the flesh of the thumb makes contact with the string right after. And you hear that harmonic. Depending on where I play on the string, you can hear the harmonic sound change. So this technique is called pinch harmonics. It's much more of like an electric guitar technique. You hear guitar players like Zakk Wylde and Dimebag Darrell and all heavy metal guitar players and guitar virtuosos will use pinch harmonics to get like these really high pitched squeals. But on the acoustic guitar, it's really effective too. Just gives you a different sound. So it's something that you can try working on to give yourself more variation in the sound that you're playing. So pinch harmonics, we talked about that, that's good. And then we can also talk about anchoring with the pick. So I usually advise people to not anchor like this underneath the strings. So with your fingers, you see a lot of professional guitar players do this. It's not like, you know, a cardinal sin or anything, but it's, for me, I really try, especially with beginners or people that are just starting out, really try to get them to not do that, not play and anchor here. What I find is that you don't have a good range of motion. We have so, you know, if we don't do that, if we don't clutch the guitar, we can play, you know, close to the bridge, we can play closer to the neck. You know, I understand that you could just move your anchor point as you do that, but better to learn to play without clutching the guitar itself. I think that you can develop ligament injuries and tendinitis and different things from doing this, because it creates tension in your hand, and then you're trying to play with that tension and making these repetitive movements, and I don't think that can be too good. So try to not, if you can, unless it's already a well-ingrained habit, try to let go of clutching the pick, or clutching the guitar, underneath the strings with your fingers to balance for support. And learn to play just free, floating like this in the air without making contact anywhere. That's really good. Make you a much more secure guitar player in your right hand doing that. Now, that said, if you do want to anchor somewhere, I would advise to anchor above the guitar. The reason for this is because you're going to be palm muting anyway. You're going to need to learn how to do palm muting, and which is basically you're anchoring anyway. It means that you're anchoring with the palm, or the heel of your palm here, like this, up towards the bridge. On the saddle, this little white piece on an acoustic guitar is called the saddle, and that's where the strings begin. That's where the sound of the strings begin. So that's where the palm mute needs to actually start, is right there at the saddle. If you go too far forward, then you're going to be sitting on top, or you're going to kill the sound. There's going to be you can barely hear it. So you need to actually play more on the saddle like that with the palm, and you get a better dampened sound. And now, so this is also a good, you know, even if I'm not palm muting, I can actually anchor here, and I have a bit more stability. And this is good because we might be using palm muting techniques, and also when we're playing, especially on the electric guitar, we need to use the palm, both the heel of the palm and I don't know what this would be, the other heel of the palm, closer to the thumb, to mute the strings. You know, so if I'm playing some higher strings, I need to make sure that these bass strings are canceled out, that they're muted. You can't hear them. Otherwise, they'll just ring. I don't know if you can hear that, but the strings are ringing. There's sound coming out of them. And if I don't cancel that out, if I don't make contact with the strings, that's going to happen. And that's going to be, especially on the electric guitar, it's going to be really, really noisy. Maybe not as noticeable on the acoustic, but it's still an important technique to learn. So we want to learn to cancel them out, those ringing, extra ringing strings, with either the outside of the palm or the inside of the palm kind of leaning forward. So that's something you need to play with and master. In addition to muting with the left hand, we're also muting with the shafts and the edges of the fingers and stuff too. But that's for another lesson. So that gives you a bit of insight into palm muting and anchoring, my thoughts on that. And then maybe lastly, we can talk about hybrid picking and finger picking. So a big part of my playing style is hybrid picking, and what that means is that I'm using the pick as well as my fingers to play beautiful music. So we have we could take a C chord. We could do that string skipping technique and do this where the pick hits the A string, middle finger hits the G string, pick hits the D, middle finger plucks the B, pick hits the G, middle finger plucks the high E. For some people that might be enough, just getting the middle finger involved a little bit. With your lead playing, you could play, instead of going down, up, like that on a riff, you could go down and then use the finger to snap the string. Get a different kind of tone like that, right? So that's a great use of the hybrid pick technique, in addition to just doing more kind of folky finger picking stuff like that. And then you can also get the ring finger involved. You could assign the middle finger the G string, and then the ring finger plucks the B string and the high E string. It's a simple little technique, or a simple exercise to get that started. And but basically any finger picking technique that you learn, you can play hybrid. There's not really much different going on. Essentially the thumb would normally pluck all your bass notes, and then your index finger, middle finger, ring finger would pluck your treble strings. But when you're holding the pick, you lose that ability to use the index finger. So now the pick is your thumb, and you just have your middle finger, ring finger, and maybe your pinky to use for those notes. So any finger picking pattern that someone could play without the pick, without playing hybrid, you could also play hybrid. And so what is the advantage of that? Well, you don't have to let go of the pick. That's why I play lots of hybrid picking technique in my style, is so that I don't want to have to put the pick down or put it in my mouth or lose it or something like that, drop it. I'd rather keep it in my hand and be able to switch from strumming or flat picking and then to what sounds like finger picking, but I'm just playing it hybrid. And because I play with fingernails, I grow my fingernails out, the tone doesn't sound too different when the pick is striking the string, or my finger with the fingernail striking the string. It's going to sound very much the same. So, but if you don't have long fingernails, then you're going to have quite a different sound from the pick to just the flesh of your fingers. It's going to be much softer. But that's okay. It's just a different type of sound. But yeah, that's how I've adapted my technique. Maybe a fun little hybrid picking exercise I usually show people is to learn to play the A string open with the pick. Whoops. And we're going to use these two fingers, middle finger, ring finger, together, actually kind of connect them like this, almost like they're one finger. And they're going to work like a team to pluck the D and G string. And then with the left hand, I'm playing, just using my first two fingers together. And I'm going to move between 2, frets 2, 5, 7, 5, and back to 2. And I'm just going to do like a pull off. Meaning I'm just going to pull the strings away. You could resolve it like that, sliding in 4th fret D, 5th fret G, slide into 5th fret, 6th fret like that. And with the right hand, we're just gives you a little bit of insight into hybrid picking. Like I said, you can take any finger picking pattern and rework it with a hybrid picking technique. There's really not much different going on other than that you don't have the use of your index finger. And so what else can I say? The last thing maybe I can talk about is the technique that I use where I don't hold on, I let go of the pick essentially, but I'm still holding onto the pick. I'm letting go of it with my thumb because maybe I want a softer tone out of the bass note, and I'll do more of a finger picking pattern like this. As opposed to doing a hybrid. I've learned to switch as seamlessly as possible between playing with the pick to playing with just the fingers. So this is great if I want to go from strumming or flat picking and then quickly just play something finger style. And so that's why oftentimes I get a lot of questions about that. Why do I do that? Why do I hold the pick that way? Well, that's a big reason why. So again, so I don't have to let go of the pick, I don't have to drop it or put it down, put it in my mouth or anything like that. And just makes everything more efficient that way. So that's a fun little technique to practice. It's very, very similar. Anything you could do hybrid picking or finger picking, you can do this way with this technique. You're just excluding the index finger, which seems like, why would you do that? But like I said, if you don't want to drop the pick, then that's a really great way. You can do a lot of the finger picking that you would ever need to play with just the thumb, middle finger, and ring finger. Even the pinky can get involved if you work on it. So, I can use the pinky. I'll do like a roll like that. That's often how I'm using the pinky. I just play the bass note, and then just kind of cascade through each of the strings. And then maybe lastly, we can just talk about traditional finger picking. A great technique for you to learn is I think the classic Travis picking technique that's used in Dust in the Wind. Travis picking is just where we have an alternating bass happening with the thumb. So all you need to do is set up a C chord, and you're going to use your thumb on the A string and your middle finger on the B string. You're going to pluck those two notes together. And so that's going to be your first beat of the pattern, and it's going to go 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, and 3, and 4. And really important to have that pause. We're not going to play a beat. We're not going to play a note for the and of 1. So it's going to be 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and every other beat's going to have a note for it. So it's going to be 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, and 3, and 4. So what I'm doing is the thumb and the middle finger are plucking the A and the B strings, respectively. Then the thumb goes down to the D. Index finger plucks the G string. Thumb goes back to the A. And then middle finger plays the B individually. And then it starts again. We play those two notes together. So if you isolate the thumb, you can see that the thumb is just constantly alternating like this. And you can get the movement in with the left hand. And the right hand is just doing the same thing over and over. Just like that. We can make it a little bit more complicated. We could play the C chord a little differently with use the pinky instead of the ring finger. Use the ring finger on the low E string, 3rd fret. Same pattern, but now the thumb is going A, D, E, D, A, D, E, D. You could also work on your palm muting technique. You could play your palm down. Get a muted sound. Get the ring finger involved on the high E string. So that gives you pretty much a very basic fundamental rundown of my approach to the right hand in guitar. From strumming and single note picking to hybrid picking to fingerstyle to my weird holding onto the pick with the index finger and doing the finger picking, as well as a bit of palm muting and anchoring advice. So that should really get you started on in moving in the right direction anyway, and developing good right hand hygiene, basically. Maybe that's what I can call this lesson, right hand hygiene. So thank you so much for watching this tutorial. I hope it helped. Hope you're well on your way to playing better and better on the guitar. And yeah, keep practicing. Take care, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.